Always overlooked, even after years of supporting my parents. Even when my son was in the hospital, they still chose my sister over us. "My son is in the emergency room," I texted. "We are busy with Megan," my mother said, before saying something nasty about my son. So I terminated all of their house payments, vehicle loans, and credit cards. I stood in the hallway of my childhood home, my gaze drawn to the framed images on the wall, my sister's graduation, her wedding day, and the birth of her first kid. My parents were beaming with delight in every shot. Any indication of my personal successes was conspicuously absent. A familiar tightness developed in my gut. After 35 years, you'd think I'd be over it. My mother's voice came from the kitchen. "Sharon, is that you? Come give me a hand with these dishes." I halted. I didn't come here to clean the dishes. I had come to draw boundaries. When I entered the kitchen, my mother was hurriedly arranging an appetizer dish. Megan's party, of course. My sister had recently been promoted to department manager at a nearby bank, a position she had obtained through my father's connections. "Can you finish these while I get ready?" she asked, drying her hands on a towel before waiting for my response. "Your father picked up the wrong crackers. Megan prefers sesame, not plain." I simply nodded and took her position at the counter. Same story, different situation. My phone rang with a message from Diane, my ex-sister-in-law. "Did you tell them yet?" I had not. How do you tell your parents that you're cutting them off financially after years of support? How do you explain that their sole grandson recently finished a family tree project that did not include them? The front door banged closed. Heavy footsteps approached. "Sharon," my father said, scarcely glancing my way. "Where's your mother?" "Megan will be here in an hour." My chest tightened. "She's getting ready." He nodded once before disappearing into the living room without saying anything. I slowly arranged the crackers, remembering how many times I had stood in this kitchen, waiting for acceptance that never came. Despite my full scholarship to USC, promotion to senior analyst, and the birth of my son, Max, nothing could divert their attention away from Megan. She had always been their darling kid, the one they had after years of heartbreaking miscarriages, the one they had long given up on having. I was only a trial run, a practice attempt. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn what she had so easily received, their admiration, attention, and pride. When Justin walked out on me for a coworker 3 years ago, I expected my parents to step up. Their daughter had unexpectedly become a single mother, and she clearly needed help. Instead, they questioned whether I was responsible for the marriage's demise. Had I concentrated too much on my career? Had I ignored my role as a wife? It wasn't them who gave assistance, it was Justin's parents, Diane and Brent, who are no longer my in-laws but remain my true family. They brought Max up from school, looked after him on weekends when my profession needed me to travel, and showered him with affection and attention. Meanwhile, my parents had been too absorbed with other matters. Until 6 months ago, the unexpected shift had taken me off guard. Suddenly, they called every week to inquire about Max, invited us over for Sunday dinners, and offered to babysit. I really wanted to believe it meant anything. Perhaps they'd now recognized what they'd been missing all these years. Perhaps they'd finally chosen to be present as grandparents. Then Megan got promoted, and everything became plain. They had not changed. They simply needed money. My mother returned to the kitchen, wearing a new shirt that I had paid for. "Did you finish the appetizers? Megan will be here any minute now." I tilted my head and slid the tray in her direction. "We need to talk about something." Her expression changed quickly, from delight to anxiety. "What is it? Can't this wait until after the event?" "It could, but it shouldn't," I answered, my voice more firm than I expected. "I'm stopping all financial contributions." Her face had lost all color. "What financial contributions?" As if she had no knowledge, as if I hadn't been covering their car loan for half a decade, as if I hadn't taken care of the cost of the roof replacement last summer, the property taxes, the vacation to Hawaii. My hands trembled slightly, but I pressed them firmly to the counter. The car loan, the credit accounts, the home insurance, everything. She stared at me, her lips opening and shutting, looking for words. "Why would you do this, after all we've done for you?" A bitter, humorless chuckle erupted before I could contain it. "Oh, and what exactly have you done for me? We raised you, we made sure you had food to eat. At the very least." She was seeking to take credit for basic parental responsibilities. When Justin left, who actually supported me? When Max was sick and needed to get to his follow-up appointments, who helped get him there? Who stepped in when I was promoted? Who even acknowledged it? They weren't there. Never them. My father strode into the threshold, his brow furrowed. What's going on here? My mother turned to face him, her voice rising in wrath. Sharon says she's cutting us off financially, after everything we've done for her. His face clouded. Is this about that situation? We already explained it. It's about everything, the words gushed forth, years of disappointment, neglect, and understanding flooding forth. It's about Max calling Diane grandma because she actually treats him like one. It's about you two skipping his birthday to go on Megan's vacation. It's about me needing emergency surgery, and you refusing to pick up your own grandson because Megan had dinner 3 weeks ago. Appendicitis. I'd been brought to the ER, barely awake from the pain. My sole clear thought was that Max was alone at after-school care, waiting for someone to take him up. Naturally, my first call was to my folks. We're at Megan's promotion dinner, my mother replied, displeasure pouring from her voice. Can't his father get him? Justin was visiting Seattle with his new bride. I could scarcely communicate through the anguish. Well, we can't leave now? Megan would be devastated. Then came the ultimate blow. He's just so much work sometimes, a burden. My child, their grandson, is a nuisance. Diane, on the other hand, had responded very instantly. She'd dropped everything. She not only picked up Max but also stayed with me in the hospital overnight, rearranging waiting room chairs to build a makeshift bed where he might sleep. That was the moment when I realized the difference between responsibility and love, blood and actual family. My father's voice brought me back into the present. You're overreacting? We couldn't leave Megan's dinner. You know how much it meant to her. More important than their grandchild being alone and scared. More important than their daughter's hasty surgery? I'm done, I said quietly but firmly. No more financial support, no more pretending. You don't get to use me when it benefits you and discard me when it doesn't. My mother's face crumpled, not with regret, but with calculating. The car payment is due in a few days, and your father's medication. Megan's new pay could cover it, or they could finally tap into their retirement savings, which they had been hoarding while I was financing their lifestyle. Not my responsibility anymore. The front door opened, and Megan's cheery voice boomed out. Mom, Dad, I brought champagne. That was my cue to depart. I grabbed my purse off the countertop. Sharon, wait, my mother pleaded in despair. You can't do this to us? But I could and was. I passed past Megan in the corridor, noticing the look of perplexity on her face. Sharon, I didn't know you were coming to my celebration. I wasn't. I had only come to withdraw my final emotional investment, the last traces of care for people who had never truly seen me. Congratulations on the promotion, I remarked, sincere in tone. Megan's accomplishments had never been the issue. The real difficulty had always been our parents' refusal to accept both of their children. Her expression flickered with apprehension. Thanks. Are you heading out already? I gave a quick nod, refusing to rely on my voice any longer. Allow them to explain themselves, and let them deal with the consequences of their own actions. The ride home was weird, like drifting through a haze. Tears welled up, but they were not from grief, but from relief. The weight I'd carried for years, continually searching for unconditional love, had finally been removed. Max was at Sharon's home. My previous mother-in-law had sent me images of him covered in baking flour, genuine joy mirrored in his eyes, and happiness in every shot. Love, genuine and unvarnished. Family isn't about responsibility or shared blood. It's about the people that stay, the ones who accept you for who you are. 3 months went by. No phone calls or manipulative messaging, absolute quiet. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, my phone screen displayed my mother's name. My finger hovered above the decline button, but curiosity prevailed. I picked it up. Karen, she said in a stiff tone, her words carefully chosen. We need to talk about this situation. The situation refers to their financial difficulties without my support. There's nothing left to discuss. A beat of quiet. Then, her voice dripped with contempt. Megan refuses to help us, saying we need to learn how to handle our own expenses. The venom in her tone was unmistakable. The car was taken away yesterday, and the mortgage is 2 months late. Not my concern, not anymore. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and a little part of me was, because I was raised to feel that their comfort and well-being were my responsibility. You can't just leave us like this. We're your parents. The link is biological, not emotional. They had never fulfilled their responsibilities as parents in the ways that mattered. I have to go. Max has soccer practice. Karen, don't. I terminated the conversation and blocked the number. Across the kitchen, Max was working on his school assignment, a family tree. How's it going, kiddo? I inquired, leaning in. At the top, he had sketched Sharon and Brent, labeled Grandma and Grandpa. Below them, Mom and Dad, were written under mine and Justin's names, and at the bottom, himself. There is no Megan, nor are there maternal grandparents. I carefully questioned, "Is this everyone in our family?" He nodded with confidence. "These are the ones who love us." Simple, profound, and true. That night, after Max had fallen asleep, I sat on the back porch with a glass of wine. A gentle breeze swept on my skin as I considered inheritance. Not cash or property, but the emotional heritage carried down through generations, the concepts taught in us about love, value, and relationships. My parents had inherited their own traumas, their mistaken belief that love had to be earned, and that children were obliged to their parents rather than cherished by them. But cycles do not have to reoccur. Patterns can be rewritten. Max would inherit something different from me. The unshakable belief that love is not a transaction, that family is chosen, and that the most essential thing is simply being present. Sharon's phone vibrated with a message. "Brian's making his famous chili this Sunday. Are you and Max coming?" I smiled as I replied back. "Wouldn't miss it." This was my legacy now. No shame, no responsibility, just choice, connection, and love given freely and totally. For the first time in my life, I felt fully abundant in what really mattered. Looking back, I could see the pattern clearly: the persistent pursuit, the never-ending fight, the frantic want to be acknowledged. My sense of value has always been assessed in terms of their validation, or lack thereof. Every milestone had been a silent request. Notice me, care about me, and acknowledge me. My childhood room's walls had originally been covered with academic diplomas, spelling bee medals, and math competition trophies, all of which had accumulated dust while my parents joyfully attended Megan's soccer matches, dancing performances, and mundane school functions. When I was accepted to USC on a full scholarship, my father simply sneered at the letter of admission. "California? That's too far away. And who is supposed to assist your mother with the household? Not you, Megan." She was too focused on being the center of their universe. I left anyway. I worked my way through graduate school, developed a job in finance, and became self-sufficient. Then I met Justin, charismatic, confident Justin, who had a loving glance and the inexplicable capacity to make me feel like the most important person in any situation. His family immediately welcomed me. Holiday gatherings where my opinions were valued, weekend cookouts where my ideas were heard. His mother, Diane, merely called to check in. His father, Brent, taught me how to change the oil in my automobile. It was strange, this easy acceptance, this genuine interest in me. When we married, my parents found excuses to complain about everything: the venue, the date, the meal. Megan, who served as my maid of honor, appeared uninterested during the ceremony. My parents left early, citing Megan's early morning appointment the next day. Justin's parents stayed until the very end, assisting with the cleanup and welcoming me as if I had always belonged to their family. Mark's presence should have altered everything. He was their first grandchild, yet they only visited once, for less than an hour. My mother had clumsily held him before swiftly giving him back. "He resembles Justin," she had said, as if this justified her emotional detachment. Diane and Brent, however, were different. They brought home-cooked meals, offered to stay overnight during the exhausting first few weeks, and held Max for hours so I could rest, shower, and feel normal again. Justin then walked away, sending a text message rather than having a face-to-face talk. Sharon discovered me huddled up on the bathroom floor, sobbing. Sharon packed an overnight bag for Max. Sharon took us both into her house as I tried to understand the breakdown of my marriage. How did my folks respond? A single telephone call. My mother's tone had been uncomfortably near to satisfaction. "Men don't appreciate women who prioritize their careers. I warned you." As if my drive had been the fault, as if I had somehow deserved to be left behind. The divorce was painful. Justin fought for financial assets but showed little interest in custody. He sought independence from duty. Sharon and Brian were stuck in the middle, divided between their love for their son and their displeasure with his decisions. "You're still family," Brian had assured me with unflinching confidence. "That doesn't change. Mark is our grandson. You're his mother." The equation is simple. Simple for them, but unfathomable to my own parents. As legal fees piled up, single parenthood, full-time employment, and the stress of court hearings became too much, I ultimately turned to them. I asked for aid, only temporarily, until things steadied. My father reluctantly wrote a check, small and begrudging. "Don't rely on this. We're not a financial institution." However, when their own vehicle broke down the following month, they contacted us quickly. "Can you cover this? Just this once, just until we're back on track. That one time turned into countless times. Their demands grew, my limits dwindled, and deep inside, I held onto a stupid, silent dream that if I simply gave enough, sacrificed enough, they would finally care about me the way they cared about Megan. Pathetic, transparent, and desperate. But I couldn't stop. Not until the crisis, not until he's such a burden, did I finally see the truth. It had never been love. It had always been an exchange, and my financial support had always served to buy their fleeting attention. Never their devotion, never their genuine concern. That understanding split something deep within me, yet it also provided me with release. I no longer needed to prove that I was worthy of love. I already had it. From Max, Sharon, and Brian. From friends who truly cared, colleagues who respected me, and the family I had created rather than the one I was born into. 1 week after leaving my parents' house, my phone rang, and Megan's name flashed across the screen, an uncommon event. We only communicated about twice a year, and our conversations were courteous but disconnected. "What did you say to Mom and Dad?" Her tone was angry and defensive. "They're spiraling over money." My reply was simple. No more financial aid, no more enabling. They have their precious favorite, she can step up now. The stillness from her end had been awful. "They think you're being cruel, that you're getting revenge for the past." But was it really cruel to stop emptying myself for their sake? Was it actually vengeance to finally hold them responsible for years of emotional neglect? "I'm not punishing anyone," I had said. "I'm simply finished pretending." Megan had sighed, a sound both tired and familiar. "They're never going to change, you know. They've always been like this." We made a rare acknowledgement, a common knowledge of the roles we'd been assigned before we even had a choice, her as the cherished one, me as the disregarded. "I know they won't change," I responded. "But I have." Another pause. Then, "Good for you." 2 simple words, but perhaps the most genuine thing she'd spoken to me in years. After we hung up, I thought about Megan's reality. Did she feel their expectations in a different way? Did being the preferred child impose its own invisible burdens? It didn't excuse her role in my marginalization, but it did help me understand why she did. We were both cast in roles that we had never consented to perform. Months after cutting financial links, I finally understood what true freedom entailed, not just freedom from responsibility, but also freedom from seeking acceptance from people who were incapable of providing it. My worth had never been determined by their recognition, my value had never been linked to their acceptance. I had always been enough. They just didn't see it. Mark ran into the kitchen, interrupting my thoughts. "Mom, Grandma Sharon says she's making spaghetti tonight. Can we go now?" Grandma Sharon. A title gained not by blood, but by love, presence, and a million small acts of kindness. "Of course, buddy, grab your shoes." As he sprinted toward the door, a great sensation of gratitude washed over me. For this bright, resilient youngster, for the family we had built out of choice rather than duty, and for the profound wisdom that had arisen from struggle. Sometimes the most significant lessons come from what we learn through pain, the desire to break cycles, be better, and create something new. My parents had shown me the type of mother and human I refused to become. And for that, weirdly, I felt grateful. As I drove approaching Sharon and Brian's house, Mark happily conversing beside me, I felt something click into place. The journey from craving for acceptance to finding peace, from seeking affirmation in others to finding it inside myself, had come full circle. I'd been carrying the weight of inheritance, emotional debts, ingrained routines, and suffocating expectations for far too long. But I'd finally let them go. And what was left was lighter, purer, and completely mine. Family, love, belonging, not in transactions, not duties, not desperate attempts to establish my worth. But it was a purposeful and intentional choice, based on the peaceful assurance that I was finally where I was supposed to be. My husband wants me to quit and stay home with the kids, but I love being a chef and the thought of being a housewife suffocates me. Original post January 16, 2022. For anonymity I can't go into details, but my husband, 34M, has developed something in IT that's well known and it made him rich. I, 38F, am a chef and I make probably 1/100th of what he does. It doesn't matter for me, however, because I love my job. We have a great life together. We had our first child, a baby girl, 3 years ago, and our twin boys are 9 months old. I have a few months left of my maternity leave, and with the country closing up again because of the new Omicron variant, I started getting worried that my workplace won't take me back. I voiced my worries to my husband a couple of days ago and he just shrugged and said it's not like we needed the money. I was confused and told him that I knew that. It wasn't about the money. He just shrugged. I was a bit annoyed because I thought he didn't think it was a big deal that I was out of work. Yesterday, I was still thinking about it, so I decided to talk to him again. He was confused and told me that I should instead be happy that I could spend more time with my babies. And he asked me why I insisted on working when we have 3 small children and he made enough money for both of us. He didn't like me working 4 to 5 evenings a week, including 1 to 2 weekends a month. I told him that I love my job and that I'm good at it. I have been doing it for almost 20 years now, and the thought of not doing anything for the rest of my life is suffocating. He was visibly upset by then, and he accused me of loving my job more than my babies and him. I could always cook at home for the family, and if I was worried I would lose my independence, he could transfer the same amount I earned from my job to my private account monthly. I started crying and he kissed and hugged me and told me that he loved me, but he has been thinking of this since our girl was born, and he didn't like me coming home late at night. So I needed to choose between my job or being a family. I was startled. Did he mean it as an ultimatum? He did. He actually wants me to be a housewife or we go our separate ways. I went to my mom's place first thing this morning. She listened to me talking and crying, but when I finished she wasn't indignant on my behalf, like I expected. She was silent for a while and then she asked me to think carefully about my next move. If we get divorced, I need to think about my babies. I will never be able to give them the life their dad is giving them, and I might lose them because of it. Is it worth it to change their lives so drastically and have them live in 2 separate houses? All that for a job. I have worked my whole adult life and I just could see this as an early retirement. Many dreamed of this. Why couldn't I enjoy it? I wasn't expecting my mom to say these things. She's always been this strong, independent woman who raised us to be independent and taught me to never rely 100% on anyone other than myself. Hearing her say all that made me question my feelings. Before I met her, I was totally sure I was right being hurt and angry, but now I think maybe I'm overreacting and that my husband's request wasn't that unreasonable. But if that's the case, why do I feel like my heart is swollen in my throat? Why does it feel like he made this ultimatum because he knew he has power and he's using it? Throw any suggestion or advice my way, and please be honest. Not rude, honest, because I feel I'm wronged here and I'm having a hard time thinking from my husband's perspective. Update January 27, 2022. So I have posted here about 2 weeks ago about my husband not wanting me to go back to work after maternity leave. I got a lot of real good advice. I just want to clarify some things about my post that many seem to have misinterpreted. I'm sorry my language wasn't very clear. I don't work 4 to 5 days plus weekends. I work 35 to 45 hours a week in total, and sometimes it's during the weekend. Staying at home mom isn't normal in my country. Daycare is free and we don't have a nanny. I'm saying this because I want you to understand why I was taken aback about this whole situation. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to stay-at-home moms. He can't get sole custody just because of his wealth. Or because of my work hours. It doesn't work like this here, thank God. But I'm thankful for those who expressed worry about that, because I know this is the sad reality in other parts of the world. So to the update, I have had long talks with my husband about all of what happened, trying to understand his point of view. I have told him that I can't see myself as a housewife, ever, but that I am willing to start looking for jobs with better hours, or that I can finally start my own restaurant. I could start searching for a location in office buildings and start a lunch spot, so then I don't need to work evenings and weekends. He didn't seem happy at all with that suggestion. He asked me why I'm so insistent on going back to work. He said these last months have been the happiest of his life, coming home from work every day to his family, and that he thought I am happy too. I am? I love being with my babies all day, but just because I'm enjoying my maternity leave, it doesn't mean I don't want to go back to work. In fact, I'm enjoying every minute now because I know it's not permanent. We had a row. He said he's always felt that I'm scared of him making much more money and that I'm scared of being dependent on him, so if I'm insisting on working because I don't want to be dependent, he could pay me 10 times what I earn to stay home. I started crying and told him I'm not going to be a housewife and I don't accept ultimatums, so he should do what he feels fit. He said he's tired of going around feeling that his wife is intimidated by his success. He's doing this for both of us. I have to admit that I'm sometimes scared of him having more power than me. He said it's all in my head, but really, would he ever dare to ask me to quit my job if he didn't feel he had the power to do it? Could I ask him to quit his job with that same ease? There's no denying the power dynamics in our relationship, and I have all the right to be scared of it. So there was no progress really, and no matter how much I explained myself, he doesn't seem to understand me. And probably he feels the same way with me. It feels like we're on different levels. I have suggested counseling. He said he will think about it. Now we're just civil to each other, but we don't talk much and we haven't been intimate since I first brought up going back to work. I love him and I miss him. I don't want it to end, but the ball is in his court now. My mom is very angry with me. We haven't spoken for a week. I don't know what to do with her either. Update 2. Monday, January 31st. Thank you everyone for the support. I won't be able to make any more updates because you're only allowed one. This is however not a big update, so I thought I could just add it here before the post gets locked. I will not delete this account in case I need more advice or have another update in the future that I can post as a new subject. My husband and I talked yesterday, for the first time in 2 weeks, and he was the one who initiated the conversation. I saw my chance to try to find out why he's behaving like this and at the same time make sure that he knows that I'm not backing up. I told him that while I'm enjoying my maternity leave, the thought of it being for the rest of my life suffocated me. I suffer from severe claustrophobia. I don't if it has anything to do with this. I asked him why he's doing this. He knew my job was important to me, so why was he making this impossible request when he knew it would mean the end of us? If you are having second thoughts about our marriage and want an out, please just tell me the truth. He became very upset and accused me of trying to gaslight him. He said his reasons are legit. There's nothing wrong with wanting his wife to be there for her family, and the children won't stop needing me just because they went to school. I started crying. Sorry, I'm a crybaby. And I told him if this is over he should know it's all on him. He started yelling. No, it was because I'm too stubborn and too self-involved to actually take a second and think about his wishes. I wanted to leave because I couldn't be with him anymore, but he said that it would be more convenient if he did. He's moved to our city apartment. I feel lost and hurt. I love him so much, but I don't think continuing this relationship is healthy for either of us. My heart is breaking for my children. I don't know what to do. For now I will just sit tight and wait for him to send me the divorce papers. Thank you again for the help and advice. It helped a lot. P.S. Mom was here yesterday. We talked a lot and she's finally getting on my side. I knew that when it came to it, she will be on my side, and I'm so grateful. We're separating February 10th, 2022. Thank you everyone for the support. My husband and I are separating. This is what he wants. As I suspected, this was more than just me going back to work. He's been feeling resentment towards a lot of things about me, many of them I can't change and the rest I don't want to change. It's not his or my fault. We're just not compatible with each other anymore. I still have 14 months with my babies. Afterwards all children are big enough for shared custody. I'm staying in the big house for now, but after divorce I'm going to move back to the city. I have been talking to my boss about my job. She will help me find a schedule around having the children, so maybe I will work lunch hours the weeks I have them. My ambition is still to open my own, but maybe a bit further in the future. I still love him. I thought we were inseparable, but when he started resenting the very same things he loved about me, I knew this was hopeless. It sucks big time and hurts like hell, but here we are. My wife returned from a work retreat with a hickey. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I'm at loss. How do I move forward? Original post February 21st, 2025. I'm 27 male, in a fight with my wife, 28 female. We've had fights before, but not this bad. I'm at a loss on how to proceed. For context, we're college sweethearts married for almost 6 years. We have a daughter, 4 females. Our relationship was never perfect or without challenges. We've faced some family opposition with cultural differences, but we've made it work. She's my first love and my best friend. My wife works in a corporation. Her job has annual work retreats that last for about a week. This year was in Vegas. I usually arrange my work schedule and tag along with her, and we make our own trip out of it. We couldn't this year. Our daughter gets major anxiety traveling long distances. We're working on it, but she wasn't budging, and we decided to choose our battles. So I stood behind and held down the fort at home. The change of plans was a bummer because the trip was part of us reconnecting as both a couple and as a family. My wife's work hours have taken a toll, and her work-life balance leaves much to be desired. We entertained the idea of her skipping the retreat. Attendance is optional, but it's generally frowned upon if you don't, and my wife's making connections in her field. She grew increasingly weird. We have a system if either of us is away for extended periods. We keep in contact. For the first day or so, she was herself, but she grew distant. I'd even text her about important stuff and be left on read while she claimed she never saw my text. Whenever we talked, she was rushing me or our daughter off the phone. These were all times she wasn't involved in retreat activities. We were supposed to have a mini birthday celebration for our daughter over FaceTime. Our daughter was excited. It was something my wife promised her because the retreat overlapped her actual birthday. But my wife backed out because she had people up to her room after a seminar. It was like she wanted my permission to break her promise to our daughter. I told her I wasn't offering that nor making her keep her word. She said I wasn't being fair, and this was a networking opportunity. They were business-oriented and wouldn't understand her stepping away for family time. I said her decision is her decision, but she'd have to explain it to our daughter. She promised her that she'd rain-check the following day. Our daughter didn't understand and cried. My wife ended up hanging up and leaving me to comfort our daughter alone. That whole incident rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like it. She didn't keep her word for the rain check either. She was documenting the retreat on social media. One coworker, 23 million, was almost in every pic video attached to her hip. In one pic he had his arm too comfortably around her IMO. He's a recent hire in my wife's department. She was asked to oversee him. I don't like the guy. He doesn't know boundaries. Once, in response to a work assignment, he texted my wife that she's exactly the kind of woman he needs to keep him in check. My wife had brushed it off. She feels bad for him because he's not fitting in. She took him under her wing during his first retreat with the team. If I'd questioned, she'd say she was tired or networking. There was always something. But I've seen her at these retreats. This wasn't like her. She was just off. The day before her return home, she complained about a bruise on her neck. She stressed it was a bug bite. I didn't actually see the bruise until she came home. I instantly thought it was a full-on hickey. She kind of brushed it off after making a big deal of it over the phone. I didn't push because our daughter was present. But when I was able to confront her, she clung to her bug bite claim. When I kept pushing, she asked what I was trying to imply. I outright said I believed she had a hickey, and I didn't believe she was being honest with me. We had it out then. She was offended and pissed at the accusation. Infidelity has always been a sore topic. Her family has a history of infidelity. So we had a pretty bad fight, and she accused me of looking to pick a fight due to the incident with our daughter's birthday. I told her it had nothing to do with that and everything to do with a hickey on her neck. The fight ended in an impasse. We're still not recovered. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I've always trusted my wife, I never doubted her, but this bruise doesn't look like a bug bite. It looks like a hickey. I only feel more strongly when I consider how distant and weird she was during the Vegas retreat. Now she's been wearing turtlenecks ever since, and we're caught between arguing and her dousing our daughter and me with affection. Communication usually prevails for us, but not now. I think my accusation pushed us to a new level of argument. I'm at a loss here. I really need outside perspectives. How do I move forward? Relevant comments. Comment 1. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I've never gotten a bug bite that looked like a hickey. Did she show you her phone or provide any proof that could support her innocence or just dismiss you? The extra affection is a common move from guilt-ridden cheaters. Even if we stretch the imagination and believe it is a big bite, she wasn't acting trustworthy, nor was she a good mother while she was in Vegas, and she needs to address and correct that. Oop. No, I haven't had access to her phone. We usually have an open phone policy, but it's not something we've ever really done. I'm sure it'll be another argument. Comment 2. Why did you go on work trips with her in the past? Did she want you to, or did you not want her to go alone? What is, and why is it necessary to have, the system when one of you is away? Whose idea was the FaceTime birthday celebration? Did she not talk to the daughter at all on her birthday, or just couldn't do the FaceTime celebration? Oop. Work-life balance was an issue, so she'd invite me to the retreats. The system is for extended periods away from each other, like how long the retreat was. Especially since we have a child now. The birthday FaceTime was my wife's idea. She promised our daughter and got her excited about it. No, she didn't talk with our daughter until she was calling to cancel. That's another reason the birthday stunt rubbed me the wrong way. Ope responding to a deleted comment, yeah, you don't get to disconnect from being a parent, especially to a minor, for extended holidays. You certainly don't ghost them on their birthday and when you promise to do something special for them and got the child excited about it, or hang up on them while they're crying. I'm not insecure. My wife's gone on retreats before. We both work outside the home and have to care for our daughter. So it's not an imbalance. My wife's work-life balance is out of sorts. She's in the company of other adults. I've been with my wife on these retreats and other social events. I know how she is. She was off this entire trip, nor did she appreciate her entertaining a coworker who ignores boundaries, having his arm wrapped around her waist like he was claiming her or something. I trusted her when she said she had a bug bite. I got things to help her treat it when returned. It was only after I saw the bruise in person that there was no mistaking it was a hickey for me, and I questioned her on it. Update February 28, 2025. I, 27 male, wanted to give an update and thank everyone who reached out. The outside perspectives helped. Things are a roller coaster. I'm trying to process. It took a while for my wife, 28 female, and me to have any real conversation about the bruise on her neck. We were stuck between arguing and her showering our daughter, 4 female, and me with affection. I rarely saw the bruise because she was turtlenecked up. But I did note the healing process from reddish purple to yellow. There wasn't any more discussion about the Vegas retreat. She made it clear she was done talking about it and that she shouldn't need to defend herself to her husband. I told her she could do whatever she wanted, but I was done being treated like an idiot, and I wasn't sharing a bed with someone I couldn't trust. So I moved into the guest room. Communication stopped. The silences were palpable. Even our daughter noticed. I'm not proud of that. I try keeping her out of fights. My wife came to the guest room one night and asked if we could talk. I could tell she'd been crying. She said she hated the way things were between us. She felt she was losing me either way. I told her I needed complete honesty. She confessed she hooked up with that coworker, 23 male, on our daughter's birthday. The hickey was from him. She was lost in the heat of the moment and didn't realize he was sucking so hard on her neck. By her account, they made out while doing some on top of the clothes stuff and then he went down on her. It stopped there because he called her by a nickname that I affectionately call her. It snapped her back to the reality of her actions. She went to splash water on her face and saw the hickey. The guy made light of it and made a joke about the hickey being her souvenir. She blew up on him and kicked him out of her suite. Part of the reason she was avoiding me was out of guilt. She said she's coming clean because she doesn't want to hide things anymore. I asked her why she cheated. What was it about that guy she deemed worth risking everything? She claimed it wasn't him specifically, nor is she unhappy with our marriage. She doesn't really know how to explain it, but a part of her feels broken. The more she looks in the mirror, the more she sees her dad, 57 male. A cycle of being consumed with work, distant from the child, and the infidelity he put her mom, 55 female, through. She said her family never talked about anything openly and how when she was growing up, my mother-in-law never addressed anything with her. I said her parents didn't make her cheat. She chose to party up with a guy who constantly disrespected our relationship. These were all her decisions, and she at any point could have chosen our family. She agreed. She wants to blame her parents but realizes this is on her. She apologized for cheating and for entertaining the guy's advances. She said she'll do whatever it takes to repair it, go to HR, quit her job, counseling, anything. She wants to make everything right. I told her I don't know what right looks like or if that's possible for us anymore. I knew we had our problems, but I thought there wasn't anything we couldn't talk about. She insisted we still could talk it out. We didn't have to give up on us. She tried giving this rally cry for our relationship, but I felt very numb. I said I didn't recognize her. Not just the betrayal of our vows but also how she treated our daughter. She's like a stranger. She feels she failed as a wife and mom, but she loves us both beyond words and wants our life together and our family intact. I told her I couldn't give her the answer she wanted and thought we needed to separate and reevaluate. She didn't want separation. She felt we should stay together in our home, but I told her a separation was happening. Either she was leaving the home or I was with our daughter. She consented to leaving so as to best not uproot our daughter so much. She asked for our daughter not to be taken away from her. My wife's staying with my in-laws. I know that's difficult in itself because she doesn't have the best relationship with her parents. One of the hardest parts is the shift for our daughter. Right now, she believes her mom's just busy with work as usual. She hasn't questioned it too much. My mother-in-law called the other day. She made no excuses for my wife, but she's advocating for us to work through it. She told me times when she heard my wife describe me as the anchor she always wanted. She believes there's something worth fighting for if I'm open. Despite some family opposition we faced throughout our relationship, my mother-in-law was always a supporter of us. I'm even more at a loss. I never imagined this kind of betrayal from my wife. She was my safe place. I feel numb yet broken. I'm in love with her. That hasn't changed. But I don't see myself, her, our relationship, or our family the same. Everything's more tense because it's fresh. I think this period of separation is for the best. I'm not sure about divorce. I haven't let myself fully go there. I'm not set either way. I don't know where things go from here, but I'm focusing on our daughter and taking things one step at a time. I feel that's all I can do right now. Thanks again to everyone for the support. It's much appreciated. TLDR update 4. My wife returned from a work retreat in Vegas with a hickey on her neck. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I only feel more strongly when I consider how distant and weird she was during the retreat. We're stuck between arguing and her dousing our daughter and me with affection. I'm at a loss. I really need outside perspectives. How do I move forward? Relevant comments. Comment 1. It was already established that there had been line crossing with the coworker prior to the trip, even if it wasn't physical yet. But even if there hadn't been, I've known coworkers' pet names for their significant others before when only interacting with them on a professional level. The fact that the guy both intentionally gave her a hickey and used the pet name says a whole hell of a lot about him though. Someone willing to engage in an affair is bad enough. This guy was doing it as some kind of sick power play. Comment 2. It's also possible it's something super common like honey or baby OOP. No, it's a specific nickname. It's not derived from her name or anything. It just summed up things I loved about her in one word. Apparently he turned it into a sexual context. Comment 3. One question, how close was the colleague to her to know her nickname that you use? And why did she let him this close to her literally and figuratively? Ope. At the time, I knew they had a friendship. She was asked to mentor him as he joined her department. So she took him under the wing and was supposed to be showing him the ropes. They would text and stuff and he would cross boundaries. His texts increasingly read like a guy fishing for an opportunity. My wife shut the idea down as not even a factor for her, and I chose to trust my wife because I never had a reason to doubt her before. As far as the nickname, it was something only I called her, but it wasn't like a secret thing. I called her by it in front of others and our daughter. She claims the guy overheard me say it when she had me on speaker once and he asked her about it after. New update. Update to March 14, 2025. Thank you again to everyone. I, 27 male, couldn't respond to every message, but everything's appreciated. I wanted to provide an update. Things have been a little chaotic with the new status quo after my wife's, 28 female affair, but I'm taking everything one step at a time. My wife and I explained the separation to our daughter, 4 female, in simple, concrete terms and reassured her that we both still love her without going into the reasons behind the separation. Our daughter's always been an observant kid, but I don't think the separation has hit her yet. She doesn't see the difference between her mom not being home and her usual busy with work. During visits, she's more distant towards her mom and clings to me. My wife attempted to play with her on this toy set, but our daughter wasn't having it and shouted at her mom that she didn't want to play with her. The disconnect between my daughter and wife hurts in a way I'm still processing. I knew my wife's work-life balance took its toll. Pre-Vegas, we were supposed to be working on reconnecting, but just how fractured things are is a lot more apparent. Our daughter interacts very little with her mom and becomes quiet around her like she does with strangers. I feel at her age we, as her parents, should be who she's closest with and not this disconnected from her mom. Their dynamic is something I've been reflecting on. My main focus is making sure my daughter's okay through all of this. As far as between my wife and me, she's advocating for us to reconcile. She's expressed she wants to work on our marriage not solely for our daughter but because she loves me. Her rally cries for our relationship are still falling flat for me. I can't give her what she wants right now. I told her I wished she would have given herself these rallies before cheating. She's adamant about the affair timeline and what occurred with the coworker, 23M. They connected because she felt bad he wasn't fitting in. He kept flirting and treating her like royalty. It started feeling good on the rougher workdays. They had an emotional affair even though she didn't label it as such at the time. The EA turned physical during the retreat. She dissociated from her life back home while away in Vegas. She still swears they had sex only once. The hickey came from foreplay, and while giving her oral, he called her my nickname for her, which shook her out of it. She snapped at him about his immature attitude with the hickey and then kicked him out of her suite. She thought she could quietly end things and salvage our marriage. I asked her if she wore her wedding ring during sex with him. She confessed that she did. Knowing this hurts like hell. To me, our wedding rings were a physical symbol of our love, commitment to our vows, and our bond. She tarnished our rings. I haven't been able to wear mine. It never hurts any less. There are just new levels to the hurt. She admits to contributing to blurred lines. She's now changed her number and claims to have cut contact with the coworker. She reported the affair to HR. The company has suspended both of them while they investigate the extent to which the affair impacted the department. Coworker relations violate their policy, and it doesn't look good for my wife in terms of power balance since she was the guy's mentor. They're also calling into question if she gave him favoritism. Some have suggested I reach out to the coworker. I've considered it, but I'm not in a place to. I feel a lot of anger towards him. He knew exactly what he was doing with the hickey and nickname stunt. I wouldn't get anything from him except trouble. He's not worth it. I'm choosing to focus on my daughter. I've chosen to pursue marriage counseling. This isn't under the promise of reconciling but as an assist in working through this separation as healthy as possible for our daughter. I'm still numb in a lot of ways. I never thought this would be how my marriage and family turned out. I've seen it happen to others. I've heard stories. I thought I knew what it was like. But it's nothing compared to dealing with it yourself. I don't feel like the same person anymore. I don't know how everything will pan out. It's an uphill battle, but I'm trying to show up to the battle. It's the best I can do right now. Thank you to everyone who has reached out. I appreciate the support, really. TLDR update 4. My wife returned from a work retreat in Vegas with a hickey on her neck. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I only feel more strongly when I consider how distant and weird she was during the retreat. We're stuck between arguing and her dousing our daughter and me with affection. I'm at a loss. I really need outside perspectives. How do I move forward? I was disowned by my entire family after being falsely accused of sleeping with my cousin's fiancé. Now, the truth has finally come to light. How did my life even become this? Seriously, I can't even wrap my head around it. Family disowned me, friends turned their backs, and I'm even banned from my favorite pub. I swear, I didn't do anything to deserve this. Okay, let me start by reintroducing myself. I'm Alex, and this is the living hell story that started about 3 months ago. I was honored to be a groomsman for my cousin, Ethan, who was getting married to Chloe. Chloe had been one of my closest friends since we were toddlers playing in the sprinklers. The wedding day arrived, and I was busy directing guests to their seats. Everything was normal until Ethan stormed in, dragging a group of groomsmen and other people after him, all looking agitated. Ethan looked at me and growled, "Alex." Before I could even mumble a reply, bam! A punch landed square on my face, then, bam, bam. A combo of punches, you guys. He was yelling while hitting me, "How could you do this? I know everything." The groomsman jumped in, finally yanking him away from me. I was astonished, my mind whirling, and I couldn't understand anything. What's going on? What did I actually do? They hurriedly took me out of the room, leaving me with a lot of questions in my head. The next stop was the clinic. My lip was swollen, my nose was bleeding, and my left eye was going black and blue. The doctor patched me up and asked if I wanted to pursue charges, but all I wanted to know was why Ethan had freaked out. Dad texted, "Wedding is off. You have till the end of the day to get your belongings out of the residence." WTF, I hadn't lived with my parents in months, but I still kept some stuff there. This text was like an extra hit in the belly, and I hurried immediately to their house to get some explanations. When I entered the house, my parents and siblings stared at me as if I were a criminal. It was then that I realized I was being accused of sleeping with Chloe, Ethan's future wife. What? I was shocked. I disputed it immediately, but no one listened. My brother slammed a bag containing my belongings at my feet and kicked me out. "Get out. Don't ever return." I was absolutely disoriented, not knowing what was going on or where it was coming from. I attempted to contact Ethan for an explanation, but he had blocked my phone number. Calling anyone in the family resulted in being yelled at or getting hung up on. I finally decided to call Chloe. The initial call was a catastrophe. We were both yelling and blaming each other, but when we settled down, we recognized something was wrong. We were both caught in a trap, but we had no idea who set it or why. To avoid making matters worse, we agreed not to meet in person and instead texted and emailed to put things together. No matter how hard we tried, we kept hitting dead ends. Everyone believed we were having an affair, but when we asked for proof, they remained mute. When I finally spoke with Ethan, he asked for proof that I hadn't slept with Chloe. I was stunned. My family cut off contact, acquaintances turned their backs, and even my favorite coffee shops and pubs refused to serve me. It turned out that Ethan had connections all over the place and was not afraid to use them. After Ethan moved out of her apartment, her family abandoned her, and friends evaporated. To make matters worse, her co-workers were making her life terrible. I couldn't stand it any longer, so I told Chloe I was leaving this dead-end town. She agreed, and we decided it was better to go our separate ways and start over somewhere else. Throwback Thursday, 5 years later. It's been 5 years since I last had a proper conversation with my family. 5 years since my cousin Ethan's almost wedding. Back then, I was accused of sleeping with Chloe, his soon-to-be wife. Those accusations were completely fabricated, but who cared? Ethan punched me in front of everyone, the wedding was cancelled, and my entire family turned their back on me. At first, I tried to clear my name, begging them to believe me, but after a while, I realized it was pointless, so I left everything behind and moved away. Chloe went through the same thing. Her family also believed the lies and disowned her, so she, too, decided to start over, but in different states. The incessant accusations and gossip exhausted me, So I decided to break off all links with people from my old life, except for Chloe. She was the only one who fully understood what I had gone through. We kept in touch through social media and the occasional phone conversation, but that was it. For the past 3 years, I've been with Olivia, an amazing woman. I told her the whole story about Chloe and me, every painful detail. Surprisingly, even though they've never met, Olivia and Chloe get along great. They even share a love for the Hunger Games. Every other week, they hop on Zoom, sipping wine and snacking, chatting about books and life. It's amazing. Olivia and I have been invited to Chloe's wedding next month, which will be the first time I've seen her in 5 years. I have big plans of my own. I'm going to propose to Olivia, not at the wedding, nor even during that trip. I don't want to overshadow Chloe's big day, but the prospect of sharing my life with Olivia grows stronger by the day. So why am I telling you all of this? Because last week, something happened that shocked me to the core. A ghost from the past decided to re-emerge. Update. That day, Olivia was working from home. She does it frequently these days, when she doesn't want to deal with the terrible traffic. Her job is rather flexible. I'm not that fortunate. Olivia contacted me around lunchtime. She typically contacts me when I'm at work, so seeing her name appear on my phone in the middle of the day seemed suspicious. Her voice was unsteady as she told me what had happened. After going out for lunch at our favorite shawarma establishment, she returned home to find a letter posted to the door. "We need to talk, I'll be returning tonight." Although there was no signature, she believed it was for me because my name was on the door. Olivia was terrified by the note, so she locked all the doors and stayed inside all day. When she told me about it, I requested an early leave from work and rushed home. We stayed up late that night, waiting to see who left the note, and even though I didn't think it was necessary, I didn't say anything when Olivia grabbed a baseball bat and placed it next to the couch. She was clearly on edge, and I didn't want to make things worse. But no one came, and the night was silent. For the next 2 days, nothing happened. No strange notes, no unexpected visits, just an odd, disturbing silence. Then, on the evening of the third day, the doorbell rang, and I opened it to see a man standing there, looking exhausted, as if he hadn't slept in days, and smelling faintly of alcohol. "Hey, Alex," he began, his voice raspy and familiar. "Long time no see." A shudder rushed down my spine as soon as he spoke. I recognized the person standing in front of me as Ethan. Honestly, I didn't want to allow Ethan in. The last time we spoke, he almost hurled a beer glass at my face, so when he popped up unexpectedly, I wasn't exactly rolling out the red carpet. This is how our first discussion went. "Ethan, won't you invite me in?" "Me? No. I don't think that will happen." "Ethan. Okay, fair enough, I came to apologize. I know the truth now." "Me. I accept your apology. Goodbye." I was about to slam the door, but he wouldn't give up so simply. "Ethan. Wait. Are you not going to let me explain?" "Me. Not really. An explanation could have been useful back then, before everyone I cared about turned away from me. But what good will it do now?" "Ethan. All right, you have a point. But I'd still like to apologize to Chloe. Can you provide me her contact information?" My response: "I could, but I'm not going to." "Ethan. Come on, Alex. I just want to apologize to her." "Me. I'll tell her you're attempting to contact out. If she wishes to talk, she will contact you directly, but you should keep away from her." That was all I wanted to say, so I slammed the door and went away. Through the door, I heard him cry, "Unblock your mother? She wants to speak to you." I didn't respond. Instead, I went straight to the living room, where Olivia was waiting. I told her everything that had just transpired, and we both agreed that the first step should be to phone Chloe. If anybody needed to know about Ethan's reappearance, it was her. When I called, Chloe was astonished, and she made it obvious that she didn't want Ethan to receive her contact information, which I assured her I would never give him. It took me a few days to determine what to do about my mother. Finally, I cleared her phone number and texted her a simple message. "Heard you wanted to talk?" A few minutes later, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. I let it ring and texted back, "Text only, no calls." She replied quickly, "Mom. We know you spoke with Ethan. We want you to come home." Me. "I am at home." "Mom. You understand what I mean. We'd like to apologize and welcome you back to the family." Me. "I accept your apology. I am staying here. Your mother. We just want to make things right." Me. "I will think about it. Goodbye." I realize it probably sounded callous, but when the people you care about throw you away like garbage, it changes you. Right now, I'm not ready to let my old life interfere with the life I've created here. Olivia, Chloe, her fiancé, and I are all on the same page about this. For the time being, nothing has changed. We've agreed to keep the past firmly in the past. We'll talk about it again after Chloe's wedding, but for now, remaining out of contact feels like the safest option. Wedding vibes, the truth is out. Chloe's wedding was amazing. A day full of joy and love that she absolutely deserved, after everything she's been through. After some long conversations, I decided to return to my hometown to meet with my family. It wasn't an easy decision, but I felt that I needed to close this chapter, one way or another. I requested that Chloe's parents and Ethan attend the wedding. I also noticed a familiar bridesmaid sitting alone, looking uneasy and withdrawn. I couldn't pinpoint why I thought she was significant until later when I arrived at the meeting. When I arrived at the meeting, my mother immediately tried to hug me, but I gently stopped her and kept a safe distance. Before anyone could say anything, I took out my phone, turned it on the speakerphone, and placed it in my shirt pocket. "Chloe's on the line," I stated. "She's listening to everything, but her microphone is muted. If she wishes to speak, she will unmute. If she decides she is finished with this talk, she will disconnect. It is entirely her decision." Chloe's father frowned. "Why isn't she here herself?" I looked him directly in the eyes and said, "Because she informed me last week that she doesn't feel safe after what occurred 5 years ago." Could you blame her? Ethan didn't just punch me that day. He also smacked Chloe. And didn't even give her the opportunity to defend herself. Hearing that, Ethan's face became pale, and a murmur of concern swept through the room. Yet, they eventually began to describe what had happened. 2 years after the scandal, Ethan married Megan, the bridesmaid I had noticed at the wedding. Their marriage was rocky from the start, with constant arguments. During one of those fights, about 6 months ago, Megan slipped up and admitted that she had sabotaged Chloe's relationship with Ethan, only to hear about it throughout their marriage. Megan stated that she was the one who told Ethan that Chloe was having an affair with me. She claimed to have observed it but couldn't provide any evidence, and she made it all up to pull them apart. When Ethan brought this accusation to the family, everyone believed him without question. They assumed he wouldn't ruin his own wedding unless he had a good reason, and they just took Megan's word as gospel. They didn't stop to talk to me or Chloe, nor did they give us a chance to explain or defend ourselves. Now that the truth had been revealed, they wanted to apologize, make things right, and welcome us back into their lives. I sat there for a moment, contemplating what I just heard, before turning to Megan. "Let me get things straight. You wanted to be with Ethan so badly that you damaged Chloe's life to get her out of the way. You built your fleeting happiness on lies, on betraying those who trusted you. Was I just collateral damage? How does it feel to know that all you built was based on someone else's pain?" Next, I looked at Ethan. "We've grown up together, guy. Chloe, you and I felt like family even before we became one. But instead of approaching us, you simply believed her falsehoods and tore our lives apart. How could you do that?" Finally, I addressed Chloe's parents and my own. To both of you, I will pose the same question. You reared us. I believed you were aware of our identities. But when the initial complaint was leveled, you didn't even engage in a civil conversation. You did not believe we were worth the opportunity to defend ourselves. You basically assumed the worst and brushed us aside. How could you do it? Nobody said anything. They just sat there in silence. Following a lengthy pause, I continued. I know where I stand with all of you now. You made it apparent 5 years ago that you did not believe I was worth it. No phone call, no talk. You showed me my spot, but it isn't here. I cannot speak for Chloe. She will make her own decision on what happens next. If she accepts your apologies, she will contact you. But do not hold your breath. As for me, I'm finished. I'm returning to my true house, which I created after you all abandoned me. And, while I'm relieved to finally know what occurred, all of this could have been avoided if anyone here had exercised common sense 5 years ago. Maybe this will still feel like home. I walked out, blocked their phones again, and contacted Chloe to make sure she hadn't missed anything crucial. We both decided that this was the end of the line, and we'd keep out of communication with everyone involved. The next morning, as I drove out of town, I had a sense of closure. This would be the last time I ever came back here. My future was waiting for me back home, with Olivia. I already had the ring, and it was finally time to ask her to marry me. Engagement goals. A new beginning. And that was how my life turned a new page. After all the pain and loss, I found true happiness. I learned that family isn't always blood, but the people who love and accept you unconditionally. I learned that the truth always wins, even if it takes a long time. And I learned that no matter what life throws at you, you can always stand up and build a better life. My mother-in-law ruined my wedding moment. She spilled wine on my dress right before the ceremony, all with a fake, calculated smile. So, where do I even start with this mess? My life feels like a reality show gone wrong. You know, the kind where the protagonist keeps tripping over her own feet. However, in my case, my feet are entangled in a whole lot of family drama. Okay, let me back up and set the scenario. I am Ava, 36, and I am married to Liam, the most amazing, frustrating, and completely loyal man in the world. Is there a catch? Liam is a soldier. He is now deployed. Again. And this time, it seems like forever. The quiet in between times is crucial, as it can feel like a giant tomb. Liam is brave and determined, and I admire him beyond words. The other day, he unexpectedly called, offering a brief moment of connection before suggesting I connect with his mother, Meredith. I was stunned. What are you talking about? My voice was definitely sharper than I intended when I asked. He groaned, exhausted. Meredith hasn't been herself since Dad's death. Her loneliness is extreme. For real? I am. We've all struggled with this deployment's isolation. Liam's words hit me hard. This deployment has been tough, and I miss him so much it hurts. But then he proposed that Meredith and I might support each other more and spend time together. I was initially skeptical. Meredith and I? Close. We've always had a polite, distant, frigid relationship. But then I saw his point. We're both lonely and clutching on Liam. Considering becoming a buddy-buddy with my mother-in-law could help us both feel less alone. Sharing simple things could help us feel less alone. I'm considering reaching out to her, though it's scary. Oh honey, you won't believe what happened, I said Liam, desperately attempting to lighten the mood. Meredith was all I could think of. Our relationship has been tight since the wedding. I call it the wine incident. It started on my wedding day. Can you fathom the burden of planning everything? The endless matching, military-style seating charts, and flowers that threatened to bankrupt me. I struggled to be calm and not lose it. Knowing I was close. I tried to absorb those peaceful minutes before the wedding, you know? To realize I was marrying my dream man. Later, Meredith, my beautiful mother-in-law, decided to appear. She's good at pressing my buttons, very similar to a superpower. That day, it was obvious. Her plan was obvious. She was determined to cause trouble. Everything was trivial and pointless. As I prepared to feel calm and excited, Meredith, with a mischievous smile, spilled an entire glass of red wine on my wedding dress. My white wedding dress. Can you imagine? She stained this enormous crimson stain over immaculate white silk. My existence felt like a slow-motion horror film. She blamed it on clumsy hands and being flustered because her baby boy was getting married, as if that made it okay. It was dreadful. My heart broke. It's still bothering me. The whole event felt planned. Honey, you wouldn't believe what happened. I just knew she did it on purpose. Her sly eye sparkle revealed her entirely. It was intentional, I'm sure. After that, everything changed. It was like someone had ripped a hole in our relationship, revealing all this tension I hadn't noticed before. It was simple and comfy. Now every time we saw each other was dreadful. Passive-aggressive whispers and barely veiled jabs were taxing. What were once light-hearted talks became tense, uncomfortable encounters full of underlying hatred. It was like walking on eggshells. I became exhausted and drained by the incessant negativity, leading me to withdraw. I felt no urge to resist or stoke the fire. You know how much I value Liam. He spoke about it with such pain that I couldn't ignore it. I had to change things. It hurt, but I had to mend it. Part of me didn't want to, so it was hard. It ached so fresh and raw. I tried because Liam was hurting. I couldn't let things stay broken, especially because his feelings were involved, even if it meant putting myself through it again. A leap of faith, honestly. Though I wasn't sure it would work, I owed it to him and maybe even myself. You won't believe this, honey. He told me about his intense training, weariness, and dread in the army. My heart hurt for him. He'd been through so much, and I wanted to help him in any way I could. It seemed like my duty. After years apart, I hoped Meredith had matured. I said, look, if it means that much to you, I'm definitely willing to try. I believe in supporting the people I care about, you know? He smiled. That's my girl. I know it might be tricky, given everything that happened before, but maybe we'll find we have more in common than we remember. Yes. I'll go into it with an open mind, I promise. But I added, feeling irritated. If Meredith tries any of her wine-throwing shenanigans again, I'm going to have a serious conversation with her. Absolutely no more sabotage. I'm not putting up with that again. His chest rumbled as he laughed. Now, let's do this for us, me, and Meredith, he added, squeezing my hand. Thanks, Ava. A little thank you meant everything. It felt fantastic to help him and leave my comfort zone. Naturally, I have reservations, but seeing how much it means to him makes it all worthwhile. I hope, maybe even pray, this time will be different. Cross your fingers. I told him, I'll make it right when I get back, truly meaning it. That weighty talk with Liam about his mother was heartfelt. It made me realize I needed to contact Meredith, despite my fear. Our past wasn't exactly a series of memorable events. I tried for Liam and our family. Braced, sent the message. Meredith, Liam mentioned you might like to get together sometime. Let me know if you're interested. Her response confirmed my fears. That passive-aggressive tone and well-crafted reply. Ava, how kind of you. Liam did tell me to strive to be better. That single word hung in the air like a terrible stench. It felt like a cold rain on a hopeful summer day. Still, we started spending time together. It was excruciating at first. The tension was palpable, you could practically taste it. Every interaction was a minefield. Slowly, though, things shifted. We started to find common ground, remembering old family stories, laughing about silly things we did as kids. It wasn't a sudden transformation, but it was bearable. The old Meredith, whom I knew well, resurfaced. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to others, with snide remarks and subtly undermining observations. I felt alone in noticing it, constantly on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It felt like one of those over-the-top high school movies, but it was my life, and it was infuriating. I felt like she was doing it on purpose, and it was slowly driving me mad. This awful situation lasted months, and my frustration kept growing. I was tired of playing the nice girl, pretending everything was fine, and smiling when inside I was screaming. The forced smiles and fake pleasantries felt hollow. I couldn't ignore the elephant in the room any longer, no matter how much I dreaded the confrontation. I finally had the courage to talk to Meredith one afternoon at her apartment, sipping tea that ironically tasted bitter, matching my mood. My heart was pounding like a drum solo as I tried to find the right words. It felt like forever before I could start. I frantically exclaimed, Meredith, I can't pretend anymore. I thought things were getting better, but these repeated digs and subtle barbs hurt me. She looked at me with her usual innocent expression, that perfect little mask of, I have no idea what you're talking about. But this time, I wasn't buying it. The carefully constructed facade felt flimsy and transparent, almost laughable. I knew I'd reached my limit and couldn't stomach it anymore. I knew this talk, however difficult, had to happen to get this off my chest, regardless of the outcome. The quiet after I spoke felt heavy with unspoken words and tension. I took a big breath, annoyed, but then I was determined. I said, you understand. I'm exhausted from pretending. If we want to solve this, we must discuss it honestly. The situation quickly escalated, with yelling and increasing tension. I half expected Mrs. Gable next door to call the police. I realized how much resentment had built up during all that shouting. It wasn't just about that stupid spilled wine on my wedding dress. That was just the straw that broke the camel's back. It was years of little things, miscommunications, and things left unsaid. Of course, we stopped shouting, but the silence was suffocating. Everything seemed heavy, weighed down by what we'd said. I left Meredith that day feeling exhausted, like someone had sucked all my energy out of me, but I also felt free. It was like shedding a tremendous weight I'd been carrying for so long. My mother-in-law and I had a messy, raw emotional outburst that left me feeling jumbled and relieved. However, a deep sadness followed, leaving me clear-headed. Some hurts are too deep for tea and polite chit-chat to fix. After that screaming match, I sat in the living room, exhausted and drained. All that constant tension, the endless little arguments, it felt like the walls of this huge house were closing in, suffocating me with memories and unresolved issues. The days turned into a blur, and this crushing loneliness settled in everywhere. Liam's still deployed, miles and miles away, and the house feels even more desolate without him. It's a constant painful reminder of how much I miss him and how far we are apart. I'm exhausted from this constant emotional seesaw, so I started thinking about moving. I need a fresh start. It's not a decision yet, but the thought feels comforting, like an escape from this suffocating feeling. Moving to a smaller house felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. Yes, the money was a perk, but I genuinely wanted a simpler, snug, calm atmosphere. You know how it's been lately? I remember bringing it up with Liam on one of our video chats and being shocked how readily he appeared to agree. At that point, I'd only talked about the finances and how much easier it would be. I didn't want to bother him with the turmoil. He added, "Honey, I can't shake this feeling that there's more to this," looking at me attentively like he was seeing through me. "Another fight with Meredith? Does this move involve her?" I breathed a tremendous sigh of relief and frustration, relieved that I didn't have to pretend and frustrated that I'd even had to fake it. "Yeah," I informed him. "It's partly because of her, Liam. I tried. I really did. I gave everything. But..." I stopped, feeling like a failure. Despite my efforts, it seemed like hauling a boulder uphill, tiring, and ultimately pointless. I need a fresh start, a room to breathe, since she's so combative. Every conversation feels like walking on eggshells, a perpetual war. I'm exhausted. God bless Liam, he understood. He nodded with his kind, empathic nod on the video conversation and said he knew I tried so hard. He replied, "Ava, if it's causing you this much stress, you need to put yourself first." That was a huge relief. Why does his mother dislike me? I don't understand. He claimed trying to talk to her is like hitting a brick wall. Obviously, he loves me. He concluded, "If moving is what it takes to make you happy and give us some peace, then let's do it." Hearing those words lifted a big burden. Not running away, but choosing to create a space where we could breathe. It was great to know he didn't blame me and understood. It wasn't just his support, but his words. His point wasn't to lecture or guilt me, it was genuine understanding that makes you feel recognized and valued. I was encouraged that prioritizing my well-being was necessary, not selfish. I needed a location where I could thrive, not merely exist, without anxiety. That conversation changed me. Talking to him gave me strength and purpose. Knowing I had his unconditional love and support encouraged me to face whatever came next. Moving wasn't a panacea, but it was a necessary step toward inner peace. Looking around our old living room, I dreamed of a new, warm environment without bad memories or unsaid tensions. I needed that leap of faith to create a secure area where Liam and I could be ourselves, away from all the unpleasantness in our life, especially with Meredith. 3 months later, I'm situated in my new apartment. So stylish, so me. Leaving that old place with its heavy, lingering unhappiness felt like shedding skin. I'll never forget this amazing feeling. My 36th birthday was approaching, and I was excited. For my first birthday in my new house, I wanted it to be special. I usually left the apartment the night before to let my friends and family decorate as a surprise. But this year was different. My place was too small for a huge celebration. Instead, my closest friends were already celebrating early before our flight tomorrow, creating an intimate and fitting atmosphere for this new chapter. That brought calm joy, you know? Peaceful satisfaction in this quieter, more personal celebration. I wouldn't exchange this sensation. It seemed fitting to celebrate a new beginning calmly and joyfully. It was great for marking this new period of my life, which finally felt mine. Imagine, we were jammed into my apartment, excited for our excursion. The air was full of laughter and pre-vacation enthusiasm. Everyone was excited. Then, bam! The phone vibrated. Text from Meredith. Something about calling her quickly was urgent. My gut flipped. I couldn't ignore it. It seemed unusual to go from excitement to anxiety. I excused myself, claiming to retrieve something from my room, my heart racing. Closing the door, I called her. My phone holding hand shook. I said, "Meredith, what's wrong?" She had a biting voice. It punched me. She blasted me. "What the hell is wrong with you?" She shouted about my behavior and how she'd had enough. Wow, I was shocked. I mumbled, "Excuse me? What are you talking about?" I couldn't believe she was talking to me. I was shocked and hurt. It hurt a lot. The pre-trip enthusiasm was gone, replaced with a terrible knot in my gut and growing bewilderment and hurt. What happened to make her behave that way puzzled me. It was so unlike her. I needed to process this badly. I needed a minute, just to breathe and figure out what to do next. What my problem seriously is that what this is all about? I couldn't believe her, it felt like she was attempting to divide me and my son. She sneered, "You're upset because I told him the truth." It was ridiculous. I asked, "What's up, Meredith? You're being unreasonable, I don't have the energy for this, and I'm exhausted dealing with your negativity. Your unhappiness isn't my concern, just leave me alone, I need to enjoy this birthday weekend." She then dropped this unbelievable gut-wrenching bomb. She spoke with a mix of resentment and elation. "You won't enjoy your birthday this year. I warned you, so consider it a preemptive strike. My pulse raced against my ribs as I mumbled what on earth you were talking about, perplexed and terrified. The sheer audacity of it all was amazing. Was she actually this malicious? She smiled. A wicked, twisted look that sent shivers down my spine. So serene, her voice was almost unsettling. After not receiving an invitation, I felt underappreciated, so I decided to make your birthday truly memorable. I couldn't wait any longer, so I went to your house and destroyed everything. The decorations, the beautiful new furniture, everything, shattered. The words hung in the air heavy and suffocating. A wave of nausea hit me. It was like a physical blow to my birthday, marred by her invasion of my privacy and malicious cruelty. Looking back, I should thank Meredith for their terrible decorating this year. It looked like a stranger had moved in. It was that horrible that when she called and told me what she'd done, my jaw dropped. Her grin was almost audible over the phone. I was speechless trying to picture it all, but she blurted out, "Surprise, happy birthday, Ava, hope you're having a blast." And that's when I started laughing. It was such a shock that the absurdity of the whole situation hit me, and I couldn't stop. I laughed so hard it threw her, yet I could hear her perplexity. She was serious and sure she'd offended me. She exclaimed, "Why are you laughing? You should be sobbing." I finally caught my breath to respond. "Meredith, you're such a goofball. You think you're so clever. You stunned me with your unexpected birthday gift, which was probably the greatest I could have wished for. Who needs a nicely adorned house when you can get this reaction right? It makes me laugh just thinking about it. The most amazing, crazy, outrageous surprise was precisely what I needed. Meredith, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I screamed, "You're despicable. Absolutely despicable." I couldn't get over it. She was so easygoing at first. "What's that like?" It was nothing. I told her it wasn't my house. "Meredith, did you think?" Wow, I was shocked. Totally speechless. It felt weird, like I was witnessing a crazy movie. I told her carefully as much as I could. I relocated 3 months ago and could hear her brain short-circuiting. Deafening silence followed. Then I realized how astonished she must have been. Sheriff Liam and his family now live in the house she broke into, making everything worse. We've only met twice, but you could tell he's the loveliest dude. You could tell he worked hard to prepare his kids. Just thinking about him and his family made my gut clench. It seemed so terrible. I think Meredith's initial amazement was turning into pure panic. I could hear her unsteady, strained voice. Like seeing a dam break. The weight of her actions was falling on her. It wasn't simply a house or vandalism. Her goal was the sheriff's home, the new sheriff who was just moving in with his family. Every trembling syllable I heard was carved with the understanding of her massive error and how devastating the ramifications could be. I heard her take a sudden, shaky breath. She was starting to realize how much danger she'd gotten herself into. The terror in her voice was almost palpable. "Oh my God. Ava?" she muttered, her voice cracking. The words hung in the air heavy with desperate panic. An odd laugh came to me. The golden sister ditched her kids for a sugar daddy, then threatened my job, but I recorded her and reported it all to CPS. Seriously, where to start? I sometimes think my life is a twisted soap opera. Not luxurious palaces and villains. Every trailer park character has a secret, a grudge, and many awful mistakes. Allow me to explain. My name is Eleanor, but everyone calls me Ellie. I don't always think positively. But my sister Bianca is different. She left her kids with me for 8 weeks, so I acted. Golden children are never as pure as their parents think. Bianca always won as a child and got away with being mean to me because she was the golden miracle child. My sister was attractive because she had lovely eyes and thick curls. Dolores, my mother, compared our looks forever. I have straight hair and dark eyes. After we were teens, my mom loved comparing us. She kept telling me to dress like Bianca and teach me makeup. If I asked her for help looking beautiful, she would bully and tease me. So we grew up resentful of each other. Bianca gravitated toward my mother's worst traits, while I rejected them. I think my mom's constant praise for her beauty turned her into a horrible person who thinks she can get away with anything. I have low self-esteem and am quiet as an adult because my mom compared us and put me down. I've been in therapy to strengthen my spine. Even though it's hard for me to stand up for myself in my relationships for the first time, I feel like my family screwed me up. I struggle to maintain healthy friendships and love connections. After learning the truth, my parents told me to let bygones be bygones, and not even Bianca was given out. I realized then how much they preferred her over me. Her only request was to take something from me. I felt like no man would ever defend me or consider me as valuable because my dad, Arthur, saw my mom mentally abuse me my whole life. Being the ugly sister meant I had no social life and spent all my time studying. I graduated high school with a 4.0 and got a full ride at my top university, which was great because my mom told me the night before I started high school that she was paying for Bianca's college since she was the oldest, but I would have to pay for community college. I cried and asked her why she didn't love me as much as she loved Bianca, and she said she did, but I spent all day excited to tell my parents about my scholarship. I suppose I was glad to have something Bianca didn't. My parents didn't mind her partying and getting bad grades in high school, and she only went to college because they could afford it. Her grades were so bad she wasn't going to a good one. After I told my parents about my scholarship, Arthur said nice job, and my mom didn't look up from her phone or respond. She ignored me for a week. I tried to ask her why she was furious at me for getting a college scholarship, but she ignored me and went into another room. Her hatred for me winning a scholarship when most parents would be thrilled was extreme. Why am I messed up and resenting her? Whatever. I realized how alone I was and how much my family wanted me to feel secluded then. Why did my mom hate me for life and make me hate myself? One of my darkest days was when I earned my scholarship and wept myself to sleep, accepting that I would never have a family who loved me like Bianca. I hated her for it. That night, I journaled my life goals until sunrise. It relieved the sting, but I still carry that mess. Instead of throwing myself a pity party and begging my parents for love and attention, I would focus on my studies as I always did and give myself something they couldn't. Stability, independence, intellect, and education. I graduated with honors, interned for a great company right out of college, and when I got home for the holidays, I would tell my family how I was doing and get occasional praises from extended family, but my parents never acknowledged or congratulated me on my adult accomplishments. I knew telling my mom about my high position at work or my salary would make her hate me more, but I told my dad, Arthur, and one year he said he was delighted. At Christmas dinner one year, my uncle congratulated me on a promotion I told him about earlier that day and a big raise at the company. He heard me talk about buying my first house and was surprised by the friendly congratulations from my uncle and other extended family members. My mom interrupted me when another cousin asked me where I was house hunting and said, "This is boring. Can we change the subject?" Then she murmured, "It's probably not even true anyway." Very supportive mother. My family enjoyed my social media post after buying my house later that year, except for my mom, Dolores, who was probably angry because my sister had a very different life than me. My parents paid for her college education after high school, but she failed out and got pregnant by her first boyfriend. My parents may have asked her to terminate the pregnancy, but she kept it and tried to work with her 4-month-old baby dad. When I saw her post about having a second child, I had to hold back tears since I knew the baby would be born into a poisonous environment since my sister and her baby dad were so bad. I encountered him around the holidays, but he never remembered my name or spoke to me. Despite not bringing anything, he brought trays of food home every year. Bianca and I didn't talk after we left our parents' house, so our relationship didn't improve. I had Bianca on social media, and when we saw one another during the holidays, she made unpleasant comments about my weight and clothes. I suppose she was projecting since I wear a lot of designer outfits and cycle through designer purses. She kept asking me what phony purse I brought this time. I rolled my eyes so hard I thought they would come out when she looked me up and down and said, "I see you're dressed up again, like the stuck-up bitch you are." The rudeness was outrageous. Despite her small children, she would humiliate me in front of them with curses and everything. I don't feel bad saying my sister is trash or for what I did after she left her kids on my doorstep. After a long work week, I was relaxing in my house one weekend morning when my doorbell rang. My sisters, Daniel, 10, and Samuel, 7, were waiting on my front porch with overnight bags. They told me their mom was on vacation for 8 weeks and that I was watching them. Since my nephews were cool, quiet, and puzzled, I let them inside while I called my sister. Bianca ignored my first 10 calls, but I persisted until she answered. I told her I wouldn't watch her kids and would call CPS if she didn't pick them up right away. She dropped a bombshell while I was Googling CPS on speaker. After she threatened to contact my job and tell them I wasn't taking my bipolar medication and fire me, I hung up and thought about what to do. Stress made me think my skull might burst. A month later, I was going to Australia to visit my long-distance boyfriend Oliver. I have no idea who to call other than my mom, Dolores, and she usually sided with my sister, so I shouldn't have been surprised. I told my mom that my sister hadn't even dropped off her kids, and she stated they were old enough to come to my house alone. My mom started guilting me, claiming my sister has done a lot for me and I ought to help her one time as I never did. That drove me insane, and I screamed at her to tell me one time my sister helped me or improved my life. I informed my mom that she and my sister had never supported me and treated me like an unwashed dog in their house. If necessary, I requested my mom visit me so I could leave her in my house while I flew to Australia as my nephew's caregivers. I doubted my sister would bring her kids back from her trip because she dumped them on me. Dolores, my mom, arrived at my house cold and glared at me. In my living room, my mom informed me I was being a horrible sister again and lectured me on family support. I ignored my mom's gibberish and questioned what kind of trip my sister was on that was so essential that she would neglect her kids and leave them with someone who hated her. I told my mom everything seemed unusual and suspicious, and my sister abandoning 2 tiny kids for 8 weeks felt improper. I wanted the truth if I was participating without consent. Mom's face changed, and she said my sister wasn't on vacation. Her sugar dad flew her away. I laughed thinking she was joking, but she was serious. Because I was emotionally exhausted, I freaked out on my mom and asked how she could be okay. I told her she had a loser daughter who departed the country to see a sugar daddy instead of working to support her kids. Mom countered me and defended my sister again. Even if I had a lot of money or a beautiful house, I would always be the ugly duckling compared to Bianca, born ugly and dying ugly. I had to stop myself from seizing her shirt and shoving her out of my house after she said that. I yelled at my mom to leave, but she refused, and when I tried to get her out, she pushed me into a coffee table with one of my favorite vases, which Oliver gave me the last time he visited. I got DoorDash for everyone and let them watch movies and play video games in my living room until they passed out. When I finally reached her, I yelled at her for ruining my life and mentioned CPS again. Bianca laughed sinisterly over the phone and told me I could watch her kids or lose my job. She said I was nothing without my job and would be a loser without it. This hurt because it was true. I had a degree and a good resume, but I associated it with my work success and would do anything to keep it. I cried and asked my sister why she despised me and left her kids for a sugar daddy. She suggested she could make millions from a sugar daddy in 2 months, so I didn't care. She was probably attempting to break me down and make me feel tiny, so I gave up. Actually, it was functioning. After a final threat of contacting my employment, my sister hung up on me, and I broke down in tears again, realizing I had no power over her. In private upstairs, I called my sweetheart, Oliver, while my nephews watched a movie in the family room. I cried and told him everything after my nephews were left on my porch. I sobbed as I told him about my sister's threats, my mom's hatred, and how she trapped me. My partner, who lives across the world, made me feel loved and supported and was my only ally. He said my sister was maybe committing multiple crimes by abandoning her kids and intimidating me with professional blackmail and needed proof. He recommended me to call my sister again and urge her to repeat her warning concerning the fake medical claims, but secretly record the conversation as evidence. Oliver knew about my background with my sister and my parents and said my sister was definitely unstable and could act on her threat at any time, so I should prepare. I was terrified, but he was right. I knew my sister was insane more than anyone, so I followed his plan while being emotionally overwhelmed. Still, I wanted my nephews to feel safe and cared for. I understood what it was like to be a child in an unwanted household, and I didn't want to make these innocent little guys linked to me feel that way. I played a multiplayer video game with them downstairs and enjoyed it. When I learned how to play first-person shooters, they were shocked and laughed as I killed after kill. After a hectic weekend, I wasn't expecting to bond with them, but when we ordered pizza and competed to eat the most pepperoni, I found I adored the 2 tiny guys. They were unlike their mother. Even though I knew my sister couldn't have been a good mom, they were both polite and sweet, hilarious little guys, even though it took them a long time to open up. They always said please and thank you and cleaned up well. While hanging out with my nephews in the afternoon, I saw that they both had holes in their socks and that my older nephew's pants were too small. I found all the clothes my sister had brought for them to be too old or undersized for the boys. Again, I wasn't surprised that my sister was a cheap, irresponsible parent, so I took my nephews shopping for new clothes. I nearly stabbed myself several times at the mall because my nephews burst out of their shells and ran around excitedly. I remember being ignored as a child, so I wanted them to feel like they could have anything they wanted and that I was there for them and wanted to make them happy. When we passed a window and they wanted to go into a store, we went in and I bought them whatever they wanted. After I gave them the switches, they both cried and hugged me, and I saw Daniel, 10, crying again on the way home and asked him if he was okay. He asked me why I was so nice to them and why they deserved it. I told him they were my boys and kids, so they deserve happiness. He started crying more and said he was mad at his mom for separating us. This hurt my heart, and I told him I was sorry. After a large dinner at home, they played switches together all night. I left them alone in the living room to phone my sister again in my room to execute my boyfriend's plan. The phone call was easy to push toward the medical accusation, But I attempted to keep cool while wanting to call my sister every name in the book. When I mentioned CPS again, my sister freaked out and threatened me, claiming I would get fired for being a crazy secret and that nobody would know if she was lying about taking my medication. She kept telling me that nobody would believe a crazy sick like me and that I didn't deserve my work. I suspect my sister was high during this call since she sounded strung up and kept repeating odd stuff. After getting what I needed from the conversation, I hung up on my sister since she kept claiming I didn't deserve anything in life. Whatever. I ignored her statements to record the entire call. My sister was videotaped indicating she would submit bogus medical claims to my employer. I recognized how smart my partner was to advise collecting this video, and I emotionally prepared for the impact if my sister followed through on her threat. After the recording, I tried to relax and put my nephews to bed. I called CPS as soon as the line opened the next morning and explained everything. I told them my sister abandoned her children and we were estranged. I even claimed she had abandoned them under false pretenses and then used manipulation and compulsion to get me to care for them. CPS shocked me by being helpful, so I shared the recording. I don't know why I answered my mom's phone the next day, but I got into another massive phone battle with her because I was still bewildered and emotionally weak. My mom hung up when I told her I called CPS so my sister would pay for her treatment of me. After I had a terrible night, my receptionist told me that my boss had arranged an urgent meeting with me before lunch the next morning. I was apprehensive, but I knew it was coming. It was obvious that in the meeting, my two superiors and a new boss looked at me suspiciously and told me that a trustworthy family member had told them I may be unmedicated for a severe mental disorder. They told me they had been provided extensive details about my past mental breaks and were worried about me having a psychotic break at work. I was prepared for this meeting. My briefcase contained my doctor's letter and medication schedule documentation for my managers. I had over 5 years of proof that I never missed a prescription pickup date and had regular moods and medicines. Primary care physician, therapist, and psychiatrist confirmed. I briefly but comprehensively informed my supervisors of my family's problems and my sister's mental health issues and assured them the claims were unfounded and that my medical records would verify my stability. My bosses took a moment to read through all the material, but once they realized that I had medical evidence from different MDs, they looked satisfied and apologized for calling me into this meeting, stating that they had to perform their due diligence before closing this case. My one supervisor even congratulated me on a successful quarter and brags about my accomplishments to the other supervisors, making me look wonderful. I giggled at how well the conference went despite its objective and thought about my sister's silly plan failing. I smiled dumbly every time I thought about calling my sister after work to tell her plan had failed, so I couldn't focus on my work. When I got back to my car that day, I called my sister and almost cried laughing as I told her the meeting had only taken 15 minutes since she sounded mad and idiotic on the phone and my bosses had never believed her. My sister was outraged and accused me of lying to save face after thinking I had been fired. This made me laugh harder, and I told her she had failed at firing me like everything else. Her children were upset because she could only lie and fail at 40. My sister lost it again and called me the B word and C word, stating I had betrayed her and that she was catching the first plane back to make me regret all I did to her. I laughed after the conversation, but when I got home and saw my nephews, who were happier since having DoorDash, I knew this could become worse. I only knew my sister was insane and coming home to avenge me. I realized I was worried about the future. I worried about my sister because she had little to lose and was unstable. I thought about my nephews. I considered contacting CPS wrong. I wish my sister had lost her passport abroad and never returned. I had become closer to my nephews in the past few days, so I knew their departure would ache. I loathed leaving. I didn't want them back with my sister. Because she was doing what my mom did to me, I hated her more than anyone else. Since my thoughts was racing, I checked on my sleeping nephews and grieved discreetly in the hallway after closing the guest room door. This was unfair to innocent boys. Next day was a sham. The door knock sounded like a sandbag being slapped on my front door. I opened it and saw Bianca next to a 6'5", 300-pound man. I could fit my head in one of his huge palms. I can just see my mom, Dolores, behind him, and before I could say anything to warn them to leave, the man put his hand on my shoulder and shoved me down. Bianca, my mom, and the stranger entered my house, and I fell to my floor with a shoulder injury from the man's throw. My sister brought the stranger to my house, and I yelled at him not to touch me, but he only spoke Russian. Before my sister beat CPS to my house, I didn't understand. They'll arrive about 11 a.m. Nonetheless, my sister shattered my door at 8 a.m. My nephews left the guest room sleepy after the commotion woke them. I tried to protect them, but my sister barked at the stranger to put my nephews in the car. Absolute chaos. After realizing what was happening, my nephews asked my sister to leave them with me. When I tried to take him from the giant stranger again, my oldest nephew Daniel grabbed my head and threw it into the wall. I saw stars and watched him carry my two nephews out of my house while lying on the floor. Nothing I could do. My mom cried too but went with them. Before they left my house, my sister came over as I cradled my head in my hands and spit at me directly in the face when I looked up. It was one of my darkest days and the worst thing anyone has ever done to me. They left in a huge black Suburban I had never seen my sister in. I didn't know the man, and I couldn't believe my sister had traumatized everyone. She didn't let them take anything. Without clothing, switches, or breakfast, they left. I felt terrible for them and had my first anxiety episode. I loved my nephews with all my heart and wanted to protect and care for them like I never had when I was their age, but I didn't understand how much it would hurt. However, they were afraid, shoeless, and in a car with my insane sister and a huge stranger. I hated my mom's actions. I couldn't believe she stood by while that large man threw me around in my home and pulled my nephews out of their aunt's house without a word. My family had grown so wicked, and I couldn't stop worrying about my nephews. After settling down after my anxiety attack, I knew I had to act fast because time was running out. After calming down, I called the police, who were aware of the investigation because Child Protective Services had a case against my sister. I told them everything that transpired at my home minutes before, and the officer on the phone was helpful. My voice shook as I described the stranger, but I tried to stay cool and remember the license plate. I memorized every number and letter on the Suburban's license plate because my profession is important and I'm used to observing and retaining information most miss. I told police about the guy, his car plate, and my mom and sister's clothes. I think my sister came to my house drunk that morning. She looked savage with wild eyes. She probably started using drugs when she went abroad with her sugar daddy. Something shattered in my crazy sister, and she was never so disconnected. After telling the police everything I remembered about my sister and the car they drove away in, I hung up and tried to forget, but I couldn't. I couldn't eat, nap, or watch TV. I saw my nephews' faces every time I closed my eyes and could only worry for them. I pondered why my mom always made excuses for my sister and how it made her horrible. I even thought about my sister's trip, what she did, if she had a sugar daddy, and how much he paid her. I wondered if her trip earnings were worthwhile. I considered a scenario with just me and my nephews. Now I had heart space for them. As I considered it, I wanted that result, my sister out, and just me and my nephews. I could offer them everything my sister couldn't, and if my sister and I went to court over my nephews, the judge would witness one lady with an offshore sugar daddy and another with many degrees and a penthouse office. I tried to be positive, but random gloomy concerns concerning my nephew's safety kept returning. Maybe the huge man she brought to my house was her sugar daddy. Maybe he was with my nephews. The cops contacted me while I was on my couch staring at the ceiling, overthinking and forgetful of time. The Suburban my sister left in was located after hours of searching. After calling me, my first officer was helpful and provided lots of details. He stated 3 police cars stopped the black SUV because the man was violent that morning. Despite drawing firearms, the suspect ran forward and hurt one officer in the thigh. A female cop got black-eyed and 2 officers were head-punched. Sister punched cop trying to jail her. I imagined my wild sister and the gigantic stranger fighting police on the highway shoulder. I couldn't believe my family was experiencing this and not just watching reality TV. I was still in shock from the officer's account of my sister's detention when he said she wanted to talk to me. He confirmed that my sister planned to use her one call on me. She's shouting about asking for bail money. A huge mess. Even though my sister was in prison, I learned my nephews were in CPS custody, and while they were safe, I was frightened. I had a week until my Australia trip, and if I didn't travel, I'd lose thousands in bookings. Canceling this trip would have disrespected my boyfriend's family before I met them. I wanted to marry my lover, so I didn't want to do that. I called CPS to check on my nephews but was denied a meeting. I told them I was their only psychologically stable family, but they didn't care. I faced a tough new department. I was emotionally exhausted and had no choice. I prepared for my vacation and cried spontaneously thinking about my nephews and where they were through the week. My girlfriend and I had been waiting for this trip for so long, and suddenly I was distracted and anxious. The week before my departure, my worry and tension dominated our conversations. My partner was courteous and supportive as always, but I was so angry at my sister for how she had treated her nephews and me, and I couldn't believe how much my life had altered because of her one choice to visit her foolish sugar daddy. I was glad my employment was understood, but thinking about how my sister tried to fire me so soon made me feel deceived and afraid of my family. Even my dad, Arthur, was away and oblivious of all this strife, But he knew. He was spineless like my useless mother. My mother didn't care for her grandchildren since she let my sister's bad decisions put them with strangers. After 2 glasses at the airport bar on my way to Australia, I looked at photos of my nephews staying with me. Taking these silly mall photo booth photographs together made me cry again over missing them. I vowed not to cry again till I returned to America and enjoyed my time with my sweetheart and his family. Even from abroad, I couldn't let my sister ruin my life. Great trip to Australia. I was overjoyed when my lover ran to me in the airport and lifted me up princess style. I hadn't seen him in months. Returning to my boyfriend's loving embrace felt great after 2 weeks of agony. He looked after me during vacation. Meeting his parents made me like them both. Fun, active folks took me to their favorite neighborhood nature walks and views. We hiked to his favorite secret waterfall, skinny dipped, swam, laughed, and kissed for hours. I was apprehensive before leaving, but it was one of my most romantic days, and I couldn't believe how wonderfully the vacation went. After returning to the US, I went to the local police station to file charges against my sister Bianca and my mother Dolores for breaking into my home. They had the man lift me up and throw me to the side to barge in, and I wouldn't let that happen. When I went to submit the charge, I learned that CPS was investigating my sister, and I was furious that they hadn't found anything yet. I left the police station happy that my family was charged but unhappy because the CPS investigation was ongoing. I worried about my nephew's safety and knew that being with strangers, even if better than my sister, couldn't be good for them. I also couldn't stop thinking about how my sister had hauled them out of my house that morning without letting them take anything. Samuel, my youngest nephew, carried this plushy dog everywhere. A month after my sister's incarceration, CPS reached a resolution by taking both my nephews from her custody and placing them in protective custody. I was annoyed when the CPS agent explained this. I asked how that was different from what had been going on, and they said my sister would have to go to court again if she wanted custody of her kids. I questioned the CBS. I immediately filed a separate court petition to acquire custody of my nephews. I knew my custody case would be one of the toughest, so I engaged the best lawyer I could afford, regardless of time or cost. I dragged my sister to court because she broke into my home, but I would have fist-fought her in a Wendy's parking lot at that point. If I wanted custody of my nephews, I had to obey the law. That was my main goal, to get my sister out and my nephews home. The judge mentioned that I had filed a custody lawsuit against my sister for full custody of my nephews on the first day of our trial. My sister's public defender hadn't told her earlier, so she learned in court. My sister has never handled bad news well, and when the judge revealed my custody allegations against her, she snapped. Despite being in a courtroom, my sister cautiously angled toward me, screamed my name, and then pounced like a hyena. She scratched my face and tried to pull out my hair. The bailiff quickly pulled her away from me, but she bit my forearm hard before he did. The bite looked bad and got infected, and it was one of the worst aches I had ever felt. I knew my sister had sealed her destiny after everything settled down in front of the judge. My sister was imprisoned for all her offenses after 2 years. Her appeal chances were poor because she was serving life without parole for many offenses. Dolores, my mother, evaded prison by testifying against my sister and threw her under the bus. I never dropped the breaking and entering accusations. The best part was seeing my mom blame my sister for everything while screaming crocodile tears. Even after a lifetime of government aid, I couldn't believe my mom betrayed her perfect golden child. Staring at my mom on the stand that day, I knew I would never see her again. Never wanted to see her again. A lifetime of observing her and my sister's toxicity exhausted me. My sister made my life a never-ending court battle, and I wanted a normal life. My nephew's birth father and his family sued me for full custody, prolonging the process. I didn't care. My sister's imprisonment meant no force on earth could keep me from them. After almost 2 years of court battles, I regained full custody of Daniel and Samuel. The smile and hug they gave me when they got home to find their bedrooms decorated for them will never leave me. In my younger nephew Samuel's bedroom, he rushed to show me his rediscovered Switch. I surprised him with his plush doggy and hugged him tightly when he collapsed. My oldest nephew Daniel joined us, and both boys cried into my hair and told me they missed me. My oldest son grinned at me with tears in his eyes and said, "I knew it, Auntie. You would return for us, I knew." In the company of my 2 favorite boys, I found my family, not my birth family. It was perfect. My future sister-in-law caused my miscarriage, yet was still accepted. During my next pregnancy, she mocked me and ruined the joy. Let me tell you what happened, gentlemen. If not for my life, you wouldn't believe this story. Some days I feel like I'm in a Lifetime movie. Extremely dark and twisted. My ex-sister-in-law killed my first baby. Yes, you read correctly. Still, she was invited to our next pregnancy announcement. Yeah, right? Insane. Then it gets crazier because a wedding, kidnapping, and legal trouble are involved. I'm shocked to say this about my family, not how I saw my life. 5 years ago, Caleb and I went on a blind date. Isabella was hesitant about the date. You know those scary stories? I forgot my worries when I met Caleb. He made me feel like the only girl in the room with his charm and attention. He noticed how my eyes fluttered when I flirted and how my lips pouted when I liked something. I thought it was adorable and pure. I was smitten from the start and thought I would never fall. He joked that his family was insane on the date. I joked that we're all insane and didn't take it seriously. Oops. 2 years later, I was walking down the aisle to marry him. Interestingly, our first relationship issue arose on our wedding day. This was my first time meeting his brother's girlfriend, Serafina. The first time I saw her, I wore white and had professional makeup. This was after Caleb and I had uttered our vows, so I was still high on serotonin and had drunk some. I danced to Serafina to introduce myself. I wasn't going to comment about her outfit, which was near to white, because I'm non-confrontational. I moved to hug and greet her, but she pushed me away and looked disgusted. She told me I was embarrassed and didn't like attention. I kept dancing, and she told me I was glad Caleb had such low standards because if he were more like his brother Ethan, he would have slapped me for even considering him. Like what? I don't know why you'd brag about your partner hitting a woman, but I kept dancing and ignored her, which is why she did what she did. Maybe she had mental issues, but she returned a few minutes later with a glass of wine. It destroyed my wedding dress when she flung it. She then abruptly said she knew Caleb and I wanted kids and prayed I never got any. It was random. Why did she dislike me? I wanted to cry, but I didn't want to be seen or ruin my day. I gathered myself, went out back, called my friend Madeline, had her bring me a spare white dress, changed into it, and went back out into the floor to dance. Nancy's negativity wouldn't ruin my day. I didn't tell anyone what she did since I didn't want her to ruin my day. I now regret that choice. Caleb and I started trying for a baby soon after our wedding. We had always wanted one, and now that we were married, we were ready. A few months later, I was pregnant. Then calamity hit. After Serafina tripped me and I fell belly first against the stair railing, I miscarried. Ugh. Though I should have been upset, I thought it was an accident. Caleb and I hadn't told anyone since my pregnancy hadn't started showing. I now think she knew. She continued asking cryptic questions and making me drink beer. Both ways, it was heartbreaking. The worst part was that following our next doctor's appointment, they did tests and found it unlikely I'd get pregnant again. I saw Caleb cry for the first time that day. No one knew what happened, but the next time I saw Serafina, she was particularly happy and started saying things about loss and how terrible it is. Not seeing 2 and 2 is still puzzling me. She killed my baby and was so proud of herself that she joked and laughed about it to me while I had no idea. A few months later, the universe smiled down on us again, and I got pregnant again. Caleb and I cried, and he was on his knees kissing my belly. Before I knew it, he was calling in sick to work so he could take me out to eat. My baby needs food, he said. And this baby needs food too. After a few months, Caleb and I hadn't told anyone or seen anyone from either of our families, but we had something planned. With the help of my best friend Madeline, we put together a beautiful nursery for our baby daughter. After reaching the 12-week milestone, which felt like a big achievement, we decided to share our news with our families. We invited them over for an intimate dinner at our home. At dinner time, our home was filled with family warmth and chatter. Ethan and Serafina behaved like lovesick teenagers, constantly grabbing at each other, exchanging kisses and making sounds that were impossible to ignore, especially with everyone present. I felt uncomfortable, and I knew I wasn't alone. Despite this awkwardness, I was determined not to let it derail our SP. As everyone settled in for dinner, Caleb and I exchanged knowing glances, silently agreeing the time had come. We stood up, and Caleb cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. "We have something important to share with all of you," he said, excitedly. I showed everyone the ultrasound images I'd been collecting, declaring with a huge smile, "We're expecting?" After hearing what we had to say, the room went wild. Everyone jumped up and ran to embrace us, congratulate us and share in our joy. Caleb's parents, Vivian and Henry, were especially excited. This would be their first grandchild, and I could see their pride and joy in their eyes. They knew how hard we'd work. She asked, her voice choked with emotion as tears streamed down her face. I nodded, smiling through my own tears. "Yes, Mom. More than okay." My brother and his wife hugged Caleb and me, celebrating our parenthood. They were eager to help and provide first-time parenting advice. I admitted to being scared and overthinking every decision. My brother assured me that he felt the same before my niece was born, and his wife nodded. At that time, only family love and support mattered. Everything was coming into place as Caleb and I realized our dreams in the company of our loved ones. Serafina stood out in the evening because she remained motionless in her chair, glaring at us with unmistakable hostility. I couldn't help feeling unsettled by it. When Ethan came over to congratulate me, I quietly asked him why. The evening progressed to the living room for dessert and drinks. I abstained from alcohol, and Caleb did too. We got comfortable, and the conversation naturally drifted to babies and pregnancy. I shared details about the nursery we were designing for Charlotte, feeling proud. Serafina remained quiet, barely participating. She said our room was too bright for a baby to sleep in, suggesting we hadn't addressed the practicalities. Although I patiently mentioned that we would install blackout curtains to darken the room for baby sleep, she hardly regarded my statement. She then asked why we chose yellow over a neutral color scheme. Surprised, I informed her that yellow is just a color and has nothing to do with gender. She then examined our beautifully organized baby clothes in drawers. She mocked them, saying her son had never liked them and that we should have contacted other parents before buying cheap knockoffs. She was dismissive and condescending, which startled me. Before that, I'd been courteous, anticipating she'd be frank, but this crossed a line. I lost control. "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, frustrated. Caleb and I had worked hard to make our baby's life perfect, so her words stunned me. She clearly didn't want to give counsel. Instead, she appeared to be purposefully undermining the evening's joy. My mother, Vivian, and mother-in-law entered the nursery as Serafina was ready to respond, beaming at the room. Their enthusiastic praise of how wonderful everything looked temporarily eased the tension. I wouldn't ignore Serafina's issue. I again asked, "What exactly did you mean by that?" My mother and mother-in-law noticed the tension and knew something was amiss. Mom asked what was up. Serafina had criticized the room and termed our carefully picked baby clothes cheap, so I explained. Both women looked stunned that someone would be so overtly disparaging, especially during such a precious occasion. My mother-in-law laughed and asked Serafina, "Is this true?" She seemed surprised by the sudden confrontation and tried to downplay her earlier comments. She told me the textiles were too rough and suggested softer ones, but my mother and mother-in-law didn't trust her. They shook their heads and laughed quietly, saying the clothing felt nice. Serafina soon retracted, saying that as a mother, she knew better and that I should be open to criticism. My mother spoke hard yet calmly before I could react. "Well, we're mothers too," she said. And we'd never say that to her. "You should know how hard it is being a first-time mother." My mother-in-law also helped. "This isn't appropriate behavior," Serafina said. "There's a difference between offering advice and being needlessly critical." Her face flushed as she realized she was outnumbered and wrong. She was plainly offended but said little. She had a fit and left the nursery. I followed her out to prevent an escalation. Serafina went straight to Ethan, who was still talking with the family in the living room. Without explanation, she said she was leaving immediately. Ethan looked bewildered but didn't dispute her decision, sensing her anxiety. He apologized to everyone, congratulated Caleb and me on the pregnancy again, and left with Serafina. After our announcement dinner, Ethan phoned Caleb and me to apologize for Serafina's actions. After my mother-in-law chastised him for bringing Serafina to such a private family event, he discovered everything. I immediately forgiven Ethan because I realized it wasn't his fault. He felt worried and sought to explain Serafina's wrong behavior. Ethan said Serafina suffered pregnancy trauma. At 16, Serafina fell pregnant with her son. After marriage, they tried to have more children but ran into problems. Their mental health suffered after years of infertility, which led to their divorce. Ethan says Serafina was sensitive to other women's pregnancy, which may explain her unpleasant reaction to our celebration. I understood Serafina's challenges as a woman. I understood her grief and disappointment and knew they had caused emotional wounds. Though I sympathized with her circumstances, her comments during our dinner announcement were unpleasant and inappropriate. So I decided it would be best to maintain some distance from her at future family gatherings to protect the positive atmosphere I wanted to preserve around our growing family. Ethan and Serafina continued dating, and on the day I delivered Charlotte, Ethan called and asked Caleb if he could bring Serafina to visit our newborn. Although we had reservations, Caleb and I reluctantly agreed, hoping perhaps things would be different this time. Unfortunately, this proved to be a mistake. As soon as Serafina saw our baby, she immediately commented on how little hair our newborn had, suggesting this indicated her hair would remain extremely thin as she grew up. Her words felt like a direct attack, and I could see the irritation on Caleb's face as well. This comment was another unnecessary and insensitive remark during what should have been a purely joyful moment. Ethan, sensing the tension in the room, didn't allow Serafina to stay long. After offering brief congratulations, they quickly departed. This year, Ethan shocked everyone by announcing his engagement to Serafina. The news received mixed reactions, particularly from my mother-in-law. She openly expressed disappointment with Ethan's decision to marry Serafina, having never wanted her to become part of the family. Apparently, my mother-in-law and Serafina had been clashing for months. Knowing my mother-in-law is typically warm and kind-hearted, I suspected Serafina's behavior was likely causing their ongoing tension. When Caleb called Ethan to discuss the sudden engagement, believing everything was moving too quickly, Ethan confessed that Serafina was actually 4 months pregnant. Apparently, Ethan had only discovered this 2 months earlier and had kept it secret as they feared judgment before getting married. Ethan explained that he wanted to marry Serafina before their baby arrived, which seemed reasonable given their circumstances. However, during the wedding preparations, Serafina threw a tantrum while trying on wedding gowns because she couldn't fit into any of them. She had gained weight during her pregnancy, making it difficult to wear her dream dress. Ethan attempted to convince her to choose something more comfortable, but she refused to compromise. Ultimately, she demanded that Ethan change their wedding date. Originally planned to occur before the baby's arrival, it was now postponed until a month after the baby's due date so Serafina could lose some pregnancy weight. Despite the frustration the scheduled change might have caused everyone, I understood that this was Ethan and Serafina's special day, and they deserved to choose a date that made them comfortable. A month ago, Serafina delivered her daughter, and Caleb and I had even visited the hospital to congratulate the new parents. For their upcoming wedding, Caleb was selected as Ethan's best man. We weren't comfortable leaving Charlotte behind for the entire day, so we decided to bring our daughter with us. My mother-in-law and I discussed child care arrangements and agreed we could manage looking after Charlotte between us. I initially considered hiring a hotel babysitter, but with increasing concerns about child abductions, I felt safer having a trusted family member watch Charlotte during the reception. I planned to avoid drinking and would retire early to our room anyway, ensuring Charlotte received proper care throughout the event. However, about a week before the wedding, Serafina called me. During our conversation, she asked if I would be bringing Charlotte to the wedding. I confirmed our plans and began explaining our childcare arrangements for the evening. To my surprise, Serafina interrupted me and stated she didn't want Charlotte at the wedding. Shocked, I asked why. Serafina explained that she only wanted her miracle baby to be the center of attention, claiming that Charlotte's presence would divert attention away from her child. I tried reasoning that everyone had already met Charlotte, and nobody could possibly steal attention from Serafina on her wedding day, but Serafina remained adamant and grew increasingly upset. She warned that if I couldn't respect her boundaries, I wouldn't be welcome at the wedding. The situation eventually escalated into a major argument involving Serafina, Ethan, Caleb, and my mother-in-law. Ethan contacted me, apologizing for Serafina's behavior and clarifying that I was still very much invited to the wedding. He urged me not to take Serafina's words too seriously and assured me that bringing Charlotte was absolutely fine. I felt furious with Serafina and considered skipping their wedding entirely, but I knew supporting Caleb and attending his brother's wedding was important. So I decided to set aside my feelings and attend, focusing on making the best of the situation for the sake of family harmony. This brings us to the incident that occurred during Ethan and Serafina's ceremony. Several relatives couldn't resist admiring Charlotte, commenting on how adorable she looked. Serafina occasionally shot me disapproving glances whenever our eyes met. She clearly still resented me bringing Charlotte to her wedding, even though her baby unquestionably remained the star attraction, and I made zero effort to seek attention. When the celebration moved to the reception area, my mother-in-law, Caleb, and I took turns watching Charlotte in our hotel room, exactly as planned. Although my mother-in-law became somewhat tipsy as the evening progressed, Caleb and I remained completely sober, focusing entirely on caring for Charlotte. Midway through the reception, I noticed my mother-in-law, who was supposed to be with Charlotte at that moment, frantically searching for me. Something about her demeanor made my heart race, and I rushed over to discover what was wrong. Caleb, sensing trouble, followed closely behind. My mother-in-law's voice trembled as she whispered that Charlotte was missing. My heart plummeted. Caleb demanded clarification, since he had just left our daughter in her care. That's when my mother-in-law admitted that Serafina had entered the room shortly after he left. They chatted briefly, and at one point my mother-in-law needed to use the bathroom. But when she returned, both Charlotte and Serafina had vanished. Caleb and I, confused and panicked, immediately found Ethan and asked him where Serafina was and why she would do something so alarming. Ethan seemed equally shocked by the situation. Amidst the celebrations and crowds, we alerted hotel staff to search for Charlotte and Serafina. The staff responded immediately, but neither could be found after an hour of searching. I called the police. A hotel employee informed us that Charlotte and Serafina had been found behind the hotel. We rushed outside, feeling dreadful. We found Serafina sitting in a chair, holding Charlotte and smoking with her other hand. Her baby was in a carrier beside her. I cried as I examined Charlotte. Caleb demanded to know why she had done this. My mother-in-law, now completely sober and frantic, screamed at Serafina, explaining she had absolutely no right to take our daughter without permission, and had deliberately disappeared while my mother-in-law was in the bathroom. Serafina simply smirked as she turned toward me, remarking that if I was so worried about my daughter, perhaps I should have listened to her request and not brought her to the wedding. I was stunned, realizing she had deliberately abducted my daughter. She wanted me to panic, searching desperately for my child, just to frighten me and teach me a lesson, hoping I would surrender to her demands in the future. Ethan tried calming everyone, suggesting this might be a misunderstanding. At this point, the police asked if I still wanted to press charges. Looking at Serafina's expression, which showed no remorse or apology for her actions, I decided to proceed with kidnapping charges to ensure she never threatened my family again. Serafina's eyes widened with disbelief as she protested, but police took her into custody immediately. Ethan begged me to reconsider, but my mother-in-law told him his wife's actions were unforgivable.